What happens this time of year is people are moved to do something. The homeless also recognize that they're being cared about just this one point of the year.
Our guests don't get looked in the eyes. People don't take the time to get to know their story.
I hear people say, well, my experience with homelessness, okay, and their experience is, going to a soup kitchen once a year. It's not a relationship.
If you don't have the time and the personal connections and you don't see the people over and over and over again, there's no trust there.
When you have been beaten down so severely over time and kind of written off, that when somebody knows your name and you feel heard and you feel seen, it changes a lot of things.
And if we can just give them that little bit of dignity for the time being that they're with us and in our space, I think that is so valuable. It helps them realize that they're more than just a homeless person.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden, and we are joined here by Pastor Scott, who is the CEO and founder of Matthew's Hope, as well as Shelley Bradford, who is the president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. Welcome to episode 60 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope. And in this episode, we will be talking about the simple phrase, you came back, and why it is so significant for the guests of Matthew's Hope. So last week was Giving Tuesday, and the week before that was Thanksgiving. This is a time of the year when a lot of people feel inspired to give back, volunteer, and even make a charitable donation. But we know the need doesn't end when the season of giving ends. Scott, when Pastor Frankie joined the podcast last season, you two shared stories of meeting people in their homeless camp and then later returning to find many of them surprised to see that you guys came back. Scott, why are some people surprised when you come back, and how does that relate to not forgetting about the need after the season of giving ends?
I think when you're in this season, it's a very important season for us as a nonprofit, because the truth is about a third of our budget, if not half, usually comes in the last couple of months of the year. But for the people living out there and receiving our services, we're that one constant. What happens this time of year is people are moved to do something. And a lot of times they want to, call and, how can we help feed people right now? You have people that load things in their cars, blankets, food, jackets, whatever. They load in their car and they go on the homeless hunt and they hand people stuff, which may sound more helpful than it really is. But what happens is the homeless also recognize that they're being cared about just this one point of the year. And so when our teams show up, it was very interesting early on, but even today, 15 years into this thing, when our mobile teams go back out into the field a few times a week, they're always greeted, especially by the new people, is you came back.
Yeah.
Another one that I always hear is our folks are very good at remembering names. We're here about building relationships. And so when, say, Charlene goes out there and she says, hey, Johnny, how are you? And you'll see him kind of look at it and go, you remembered my name? Mm-hmm. I think that when you have been beaten down so severely over time and kind of written off, that when somebody knows your name mm-hmm. and you feel heard and you feel seen, it changes a lot of things. And I think it has a lot to do with our success.
It's pretty special. Shelley, why are the personal connections that you and your team foster with your guests so powerful?
The thing is so many times our guests don't get looked in the eyes. Mm. And people don't take the time to get to know their story. We had a guest yesterday who I really very much upset. And it's okay with me because I think I pricked something in her heart to make her think. And I've done that. Not that I want to upset people, but I've done that so many times where they come back and they're like, you were right. I'm sorry. And it's just kind of getting to the point to where they trust you enough to where you can speak truth as well as love to them. But if you don't have the time and the personal connections and you don't see the people over and over and over again, there's no trust there.
Sounds like you're building that bond, that relationship, yes, because without truth and without trust, is that a relationship?
Yeah. Well, and when you consider the cornerstone of our ministry is to move people towards a life of independence and self-sustainability. I mean, not to sound bad, and some people will take this probably bad, and I'll probably get some nasty grams, but anybody can give out something.
Sure.
Okay. And you won't find it hard for people to take it. Now, you'd be surprised what happens after that often with what they took, because they're going to go through what you gave them to see what they need. And the rest of it often gets trashed. And I think that's one reason why it's important to support places like Matthew's Hope or whatever's in your community that's doing this, because we have that relationship. And we ask this really off the wall, out of the box question. You're going to love this. What do you need today?
Yeah. What a powerful statement.
What do you need today?
Right.
Not here's what I've got. You take it or leave it. Or I have people sometimes say, I'll see you on social media. Well, I gave them this and they were so ungrateful. Well, it probably had less to do with them being ungrateful as maybe they just ate, or maybe what you offered is something they don't like. Yes, just because you become homeless doesn't mean you no longer have a taste bud or a preference on how you look or what you eat and what have you. I'll tell a funny story that happened in Winter Garden a number of years ago, and I laugh about it at the same time. It contradicts a lot of what I just said. But what happened is there was a gentleman down on Plant Street, and he was kind of sitting in the storefront of someplace. And I recognized him. I didn't know him, but I recognized him to be part of the homeless community. And I rode up and I pulled my truck over and I said, "Hey, man, you hungry?" He goes, "Yeah, I am." He says, "What do you got?" And I said, I explained the sandwiches I had. And he goes, No, thank you. And he says, "What else do you have?" And I told him, I got these chips or whatever. He goes, "No." He says, "But you know what? I'd love to have that Reese's peanut butter cup you have there." And I said, "No, hell no, that's mine." Okay.
I didn't offer you that.
Now, I'm a human being, and I look back on that and I go, "Was that the best answer I could have given him?" But the truth is, the longer you do this, I hear people say, "Well, my experience with homelessness," okay, and their experience is, going to a soup kitchen once a year, or doing something like that. No, that's not that. That's a time,
a moment you have.
Point in time. Yeah, it's not an experience. It's not a relationship, and that's really what changes everything. That you came back, you saw me, you heard me. Those are, you knew my name. I mean, that's huge.
So you had someone take a tour of the campus recently, and something surprised them. What was that?
So we had the Church of Viera over near our Brevard campus that wanted to come over for a tour. Because they're putting together a video of what's going on there to get their church to support. They're a very outreach-driven church, and they want to really partner with us. And so one of the people on the tour, his name's Jonathan, and he is a videographer, and he writes and he directs film and stuff. And he was with us because he wanted to kind of look at everything and get an idea of what he wanted to video. And at the end of the tour, he said, "Who helps you write in your Moving Forward magazine?" And I said, "Mostly it's staff. And then there's some people in the community that have offered to write for us and what have you." And he goes, "Could I write an article?" And I said, "Sure. Well, let's talk about that." So I made him some connections with Mark and stuff to talk about the magazine and due dates and what have you. And he wrote us and he said, "It was very enlightening to come on the tour. It's something I've never seen before." He said, "What moved me the most, though, was how often I heard, 'You know my name.'" How often I saw staff and volunteers calling people by name and not just handing them stuff. And he said, "It occurred to me that very few people that are homeless probably are called by their name at any time." And so it was a huge affirmation for me as the founder of Matthew's Hope, but just for our team, that someone else witnessed what we see and believed to be important in the ministry that we do.
Right.
That affirmation is good for us, because sometimes
Absolutely.
what we do can get mundane. And it's not that we don't all love what we do, but there's times where we're like, "Oh my gosh, it's another long day." And
Sure.
we're human.
Right.
And so when somebody else recognizes it, not that we need the pat on our backs, but it helps almost give us that boost of energy to go the next.
It's like a triple
day.
shot latte.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, no,
No,
it reminds
is.
you guys too of how important of what your daily activities are, because like you said, you're doing them every day, day after day. Of course, it changes day after day, but
Right.
But you see,
It's nice to hear.
we witness. I think the toughest thing that I recognize after all these years and the amount of staff we have and volunteers is we witness a lot of dysfunction, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and it rocks your world. And you got to kind of figure out how to process what you witnessed. And then you're attacked on social media about how you're not doing things right. You're taking advantage. You're getting rich on the homeless. I mean, we've heard it all. I've heard it all. Personal attacks on Matthew's Hope. And it kind of eats a little bit of your soul every time that happens. And so when someone recognizes what Jonathan recognized, it kind of makes you want to get up the next morning and say, you know what, it's worth it.
Yeah.
We're on the right path.
And why is it so important for your guests to feel value, to feel human?
I mean, because so much of the time in public, they don't. They are invisible. Even if they're not invisible or they're sitting over there in front of that storefront, they're not invisible, but people act like they don't exist. And if we can just give them that little bit of dignity for the time being that they're with us and in our space, I think that is so valuable. And it helps them realize that they're more than just a homeless person or a bum. Whatever you want to call it. I hate that word, but whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to travel a lot of places around the world. And I have seen homelessness and where people do great with it and where people do little with it. But I will say, I think the most amazing thing that I have found is many of the places that I have been here in the United States where literally I've watched people walk over a body.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the assumption is that person's passed out or asleep.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how often I found out there was actually a medical emergency happening there or that person was dead.
No.
And someone finally realized after they stepped over him a couple days that
The head moved.
Yeah. So, again, we can't save them all. We aren't suggesting that we can do that. But I think that when you look people in the eyes, I'm an eye contact person.
Yeah.
Shelley will tell you, I get really irritated when people don't look me in the eye. Because my feelings are, if you trust people, if you understand them, if you want to show them respect, you can look them in the eye and say anything. No matter whether they agree with it or not, you can say anything. And so I think that our homeless deserve that same kind of respect. Look, sometimes it's not going to turn out well. There's people that will get angry at us. But that's, it's kind of like, a few years ago when a couple 15-passenger vans rolled over, so all the churches quit sending kids to camp.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out not so much to do with the 15-passenger van, but my point being is that we do things because we think we know what we think we know, and we're really ignorant to what's really going on there.
So often when people drop a donation in a bucket or round up for a cause at the register, they don't ever see where the money goes. But you know the names, the faces, the stories of all of your guests and your donors help to serve. Can you tell us about a few of your guests?
Who do you want to start with? I mean, do we start with Gage or do we start with Calvin?
I think we spent a second on Gage, but I think it's real important that we focus on some things that we've seen just recently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it helps paint the picture of what we experience and see.
Yeah, Gage is someone who came into our program, and many times you've heard us say throughout the last however many episodes we're on, 60 episodes, of homelessness is not you're not born into it. Well, we're realizing now that's not the case anymore. These recent generations have come up to where that is the case. And Gage's father is also homeless. And he worries about him a lot. And so Gage came to us. He came to Central Florida to have a better life and to find a better job. And he was possibly following somebody, how young people do. And he stumbled on Matthew Soap. We found him out on the streets on one of our mobile outreach teams. And he came in, and I kept saying, tell me about this kid. Now, I didn't see the tattoos on his face at first, but I could tell that he was, he was respectful. He didn't have an edge about him. And finally, he went through the process, came in and worked, and now he's in our program. And he's one of those that, just like Shannon was, where I'm like, okay, dude, you got to slow down, because he's like, okay, I got this. Let's go. Come on. What's the next thing? And the great thing is now he's got his driver's license. He's gotten his GED. He now is in school to be an electrician.
That's awesome.
And he sees himself becoming an electrician in the next year.
You got his license too, right?
His driver's license.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. I didn't specify that. I probably should have.
Well, but it just shows it's
You're helping him move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. And it started out.
And it gave him the confidence. He had the confidence because let me tell you, when we kept saying, Gage, you are, however old you are, he's in his 20s, you need to have a driver's license. He didn't have the confidence to go get a driver's license. Yeah. So we built that confidence up. And I think it's so important for people to realize, you could walk up to me all day long and say, hey, you can go do surgery on somebody. You can give me that confidence all day long. But until I have, you can give me that knowledge all day long. Until I have the confidence to go to the school to learn how to do the surgery, I'm not going to go.
Very true.
And that's where we were with him. So I said that backwards, but you understood what I meant.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't want to put Shelley on surgery on anything.
That's the upside to this. And there's other upsides. One of the things that we've recently done is had it's called a spotlight by Advent Health to spotlight various organizations they support. And one of the things they asked for was some success stories. And it's hit at a very interesting time, because it's easy to sit there and talk about Gage, who is a young man, not just recapturing his life. He didn't have a life, capturing life, period.
Yeah.
But then to have a couple situations that's just recently happened. And one is the loss of Calvin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Calvin is this gentle giant. My goodness, 6 foot?
He was 6'4".
6'4".
Wow.
Okay. 350 pounds easy. Calvin became homeless. He had a stroke. And he kind of, for this big behemoth of a man, he would kind of shuffle. That was all part of the stroke. But Calvin came into the program determined to capture his life back. And he worked his way into housing through the Moving Forward program. All these things are coming together for him, and he worked constantly. He wasn't fast, but he was always on the move. You never had to ask him to do something. If he saw something need to be done, he just automatically went over there and picked it up and started doing it. He always helped other people. He was very respectful, opened doors and stuff. And
kind, so kind.
Very, very kind. And, through our medical team, we were trying to see how other ways we could help him. And of course, there was this blood work done. And this isn't that long ago. Blood work was done. And for the most part,
it all came back normal.
Right? Weeks. I'm talking about not several weeks. I'm talking about a couple of weeks. He's not feeling great.
And he had his skin was irritated.
Yeah. And so we get him to the doctors and they get him to the hospital. It's all happened like this.
Yeah.
Turns out it was melanoma.
Yeah.
And it didn't even show up a couple of weeks prior. Now it's just like ravaging his body.
Wow.
And, Calvin went from getting in the hospital. I think by that night he was in ICU.
2 days later.
2 days later. Okay. Yeah. And the following day he's being intubated and discussing end of life.
Wow.
Now, why is that a success story? Well, from a ministry standpoint, he absolutely understood who his God was.
Yeah.
That was huge. He was able to, as much as someone can, come to terms with the fact that they're dying. And our nurse practitioners and RNs, literally surrounded this guy like angels throughout his last few days, and were there to advocate for him at the hospital, to help him understand what was happening and and it was just, and he's one of those guys that you sit there and it's like a punch in the kidneys. It's not that I don't care about all of them. We see death all the time. But you see this guy who just was trying to do everything right.
Taking those steps.
And, he's done. He's done. But what he did know is that he was loved.
Yep.
And we knew his name.
Yep.
And how important is that?
I think it's huge. And I think it's huge for people to understand that when somebody's in their dying moments and we can help get them connected with hospice and different things, that this is a man that most likely would have died on the streets alone and may have been one of those people that was stepped over a couple times till someone realized he didn't move for a period of time. And then we just had another situation where one of our guests, Kevin, who was helping me to design our memorial garden. And those of you that don't know about our memorial garden, we do, it's a brick garden, if you will, of the people we've lost over the years. And we have one in Orange County, and we're getting ready to put ours in Brevard County. And Kevin was moved to want to help me with this because he knew someone else we spoke about just, weeks ago who had OD'd. And ends up that Kevin ODs.
Wow.
Very much the same way the last one did, very much like, but that's not something they did. So, but the saddest part was, I think, is Charlene, who leads our mobile team and advocacy over in Brevard, rolled up with the mobile team that morning while they hadn't even covered his body yet. So these are things that sometimes our people witness, and our doctor and I have encouraged her to talk to somebody about it, because I don't care how many times you see that, you just can't unsee it.
Right.
However, here's the other side of it is I remind everybody, we knew Kevin's name.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kevin knew he was loved and cared for. And again, you say, well, how it can be successful if he ended up ODing on the streets? If you roll back from where he was when we got him, I mean, he was on the road. But if you understand addiction, first off, addiction is very hard to understand. But if you have some kind of grasp of how it works, it's very common somebody takes 3 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you that's what happened with him, because there's things about it that just don't sound right. But what I do know is it will be looked at as just one more dead junkie. And we've talked about that subject before.
Yeah.
When this kind of thing happens, even though the coroner and everybody's saying, well, I'm not seeing this, I'm not seing that, it's just written off as, person stuck a needle in their arm and died. And I just want to assure everybody that, till our last breath, we're going to know their name. We're going to make sure they know there's somebody.
So how is Matthew's Hope funded?
Just from people like you and me. That's the biggest thing is, just people giving up their 10% and, donating to us, as well as, giving us their goods and services as well.
And what's the easiest way to support your ministry all year, not just during the seasons of Thanksgiving and upcoming Christmas, but all year long? How can we help you guys?
Ideally, something that is helpful to us because of the fact that giving is so up and down. I jokingly say people love Jesus, but they really love Jesus in December.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ain't wrong.
And I'll probably get a nasty gram on that one. But the truth is, it's very hard because some of our biggest growth times of the year is when the least amount of money is coming in. So we've tried to encourage people and companies that want to support us to become sustaining donors. Whether that's $10 a week, $10 a month, $25, $100, whatever someone's able to do, it allows us to budget out.
Okay.
If someone visits our website, MatthewsHopeMinistries.org, if they visit that, they can even pick the campus that they want to give the money to and through. But we always are looking for people that have some kind of talent they can bring to us.
Okay.
You know, we do classes, we do life skill classes that some people can come in and do with us. Some kind of services they can offer us, whether it's a mechanic working on some of our vehicles, what have you. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Nice.
Matthew's Hope is oddly enough, a big beast with a giant heart and a very small support system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And we do a lot with a little. It makes us look bigger than we are. But I will say, compared to any other time, I think our support is needed now more than ever.
Yeah. Sustaining donors would make my heart happy.
Yeah. Okay. And they can do that by going to the
allow us to
website.
sleep a little
It
bit
would.
more.
Yes, it would.
And you said matthewshope.org.
Matthew's Hope
Matthew's
Ministries.
Ministries.org.
matthewshopeministries.org. Sign up and get that.
And follow us on Facebook
Recurring.
too. I mean, we're making our needs constantly met,
guys are good about that.
available to people. You know, I had someone, again, it just happened yesterday. Well, call them because they're picky. And I said, it's not that we're picky. It's just that after 15 years, we know very specifically what we need, and we don't want to waste your time or effort either.
Absolutely.
Well, and why is it okay for us to pay somebody to sort through what we don't need? That takes away from our resources as well.
Absolutely.
Or pay to take it to the dump,
Right.
which we have to pay for often because people just
Because I
leave
don't
stuff.
think you need hockey
Broken.
skates.
Yeah.
Or broken toys, or broken furniture,
Right.
or broken lamps.
We can do better.
Yes, we can do
I
better.
think we
for
can
sure.
do. I jokingly say before we close, I'll say, you know what a little homeless girl wants more than anything else is a little doll with a missing arm that's a little dirty.
You're kidding me.
Okay, and people leave that kind of stuff. And I, you know, I'm not here to judge anybody. I don't know what they're thinking, but I would pray that you know, if you really want to help, if you follow what we need, we're going to tell you specifically what our needs are.
Yeah.
And in that way, if there's other things you support, there's a lot of good agencies out there that do different things that want those dress clothes. You know, we don't have a need or the space to you know, if we got to get a dress or a suit for someone, we'll take them and get them fitted for it so they don't look like they're wearing somebody else's clothing.
Right.
And that plays in with the dignity too. They
It
get a
absolutely
nice new
does.
outfit and it's theirs.
We've all seen that guy that wears, he probably inherited his dad's suit, and his dad had broader shoulders than he did, so the suit dips on each side. His dad had an 18-inch neck, and he has a 16-inch neck, so you see it clear out here in the top. You know, that is not, you know, you want somebody to be able to look in that mirror before they go out to whatever that is they're going to, and feel like, you know what?
I look good and I feel good and I'm going to do good.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we've all been that sibling that's gotten the hand-me-downs. But that one time that you got that brand new pair of sneakers or that brand new shirt,
Yep.
how it makes you feel.
Yep.
It's true.
So we can remember that.
Yep.
Well, thank you both for being here and sharing the stories. We appreciate you guys, and I'm so sorry about the recent happenings. So we'll be thinking about you guys. And thank you all for listening and viewing. Please like, subscribe, share so we can get this message out to as many as possible.